Kaplan. Thank our friends at Deepwater Wind, thinking about innovative guys who seem to be doing fairly well and reinventing some industries. I want to thank Michael Harrison from Talkers Magazine, who had just joined us, talking about some of the fluxes in the radio industry. Let's jump into it. Amazon is beginning to now scare everyone in the free world. I just heard that they've started an innovation outsourcing consulting business, and they're going to take on the big boys like Biff.
Bring it. I say bring it.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Death Flight, Dunkin' Donuts Center, MMA. They announced or leaked out or whatever you want to call it last week that functionally they're taking on UPS and FedEx.
Well, what they did was they said, look, okay, this is just the beginning too.
Right.
They took, now that they own Whole Foods,
Right.
They said, okay, let's start playing with some new capabilities in the Whole Foods model. So these are the incremental changes. People think this is the end game. This is not even close to the end game. But they announced that they were going to experiment in 4 test markets, with a 2-hour home delivery.
Right.
From Whole Foods. Okay, that's been done before. I mean, there's nothing.
Not well.
But they know how. But they know how to do it.
Right. Have you ever had Peapod?
This is
it did not go well.
But this is Amazon.
Yeah, right.
They know how to do it, and so they're going to try it in 4 test markets, and they'll see. This is the secret to what Jeff Bezos and Amazon does. They try more stuff. They experiment with new capabilities. Who knows if it's going to scale? Right? Who knows if it's going to work the way they put it out in the test market, but they're going to learn how these capabilities can change the customer shopping experience, right? And they're just going to keep trying more stuff, and when they find stuff that works, then they'll scale it. So we'll see. So of course everybody looked at that, and if you're in the supermarket business, you're already plenty worried about being disrupted. So now all of a sudden the ante starts to go up. I think this is just the beginning. I think they're going to experiment with all kinds of new capabilities and models, whether it's the folks who want to touch produce in a store, or it's online, or some blended model that we don't even know about today.
They're literally going to bring grapes to your house and let you try out a few and then deliver the ones that you select.
If they can deliver it economically and the customer wants it and values it enough to pay for it, you can bet on one thing. Amazon's going to try it to see if it works. And this is what we don't do as innovators, right? We think we can analyze our way to the future. And it's a generative act. We have to try. And that's what Jeff Bezos does. I'm sure a lot of what he does doesn't work. Right? And some of what he does works. He focuses on initiatives that aren't going to make money, for 3 or 4 years. He's trying to play with this stuff, right? He's trying to play with the stuff to see what delights customers, and they'll worry about making money later. And the market loves it, right? So the market bids up his stock anyway. So
the most undervalued stock, even during the sell-offs, he was still going green.
He's already the most wealthy man in the world, right? I mean,
do we think he's stopping at $100 billion? Do we think he's going to slow down, take the foot off the pedal?
I don't think it's about money for this guy.
No.
Right? I really don't. I think this guy's on a mission, to completely reimagine, the way we shop, the way people supply goods, the way people buy goods, and he is all about the customer, right? What's the customer experience like? And if it works for the customer, then we can figure out how to do it economically. He's not about the short term, what drives the stock price. He's willing to make, and has demonstrated, you're absolutely right, 10-year horizons, where he's told his shareholders, this is not about short term. If you're going to own our stock, you're doing it because you believe in our vision and what we're doing. I mean, it sounds like common sense, right? But much easier to say than to do.
Absolutely.
And much harder for incumbents, to figure out
what's
how to
the stock
react to
trading at? $1,400 a share or something like that? I mean, it seems to be.
It's a pretty amazing story, and it seems like almost every single week they're playing with a different capability, whether it's the Amazon Go stores and changing the checkout process, or the two-hour delivery. Just, you're going to start to see them, or the healthcare thing that that they're talking about. They're just going to keep experimenting, right? That's the mantra: experiment all the time.
So let's talk about. I'm going to jump over to Elon Musk.
Okay.
Who had a rough quarter, and can't seem to be able to produce the cars that he's promised he's going to produce. Is is he in a different situation? Is he a little overpromise, underdeliver versus Amazon that seems to test things before they roll them out?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, he's more flamboyant. He's more out there publicly. He is one of these guys who, it's amazing the boldness of his visions. We just came off the week, where the
Sent a
Falcon,
rocket.
the Falcon Heavy rocket. I don't know if you saw that. I'm a space geek. I was glued to my computer screen. People in my office were looking over like, what the hell is he looking at? Right? I had to watch this thing live. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. They strapped 3 of those Falcon rockets together.
Right.
And it's not just that they figured out how to get the thrust to take this thing up, which is unbelievable. They're the most powerful demonstration, of thrust ever for one of these rockets. It was the thing that even impresses me more is he figured out how to land these things so they can reuse the parts, which will drive down the cost of travel, into space. That is absolutely mind-blowing, and he did it. So this guy takes a bold vision, right, and then he just moves towards it. So let's take the Model 3.
Yep.
Right. So big, bold vision. They have
just to describe.
Right.
It's a new Tesla under $40,000, mid 30s.
Yeah.
It had been promised to produce 10x
Right.
this quarter, and they produced half an X.
So let's take the different aspects of this. First of all, they got 500,000 orders for this thing.
Right.
For that people that paid a deposit
Right.
for a car that they have no path to be able to make it that volume.
Right.
How amazing is that? 500,000 orders, right? This stock is valued as a software company,
Right.
not an automobile manufacturer,
Right.
which is part of his secret because he can raise money. They have, before we talk about the production schedule, they have 6 months worth of cash. He doesn't have to raise any more capital.
Right.
So this is not some urgent.
But at some point, he's got to get people
produce
their
the
cars.
So I believe, and I've seen people on both sides of this argument. I happen to believe, that they're going to overcome the hurdles. They're going to start ramping up production. They need to do it. You're right. They promised they would do it. A lot of people put.
But they weren't off by.
They
weren't
off
off
by
by 20 or 30%.
No,
They were off by like 90 something.
No, they produce like 2,500 cars. When they need 500,000
Yes,
cars, right? So you can't get there from here. You
Right.
probably have to ramp up production.
At some point, there's a class action suit. It's just called a fraud.
Yeah, and the reason, the bottleneck in this thing is the power source, the batteries.
Right.
And how they package the batteries into the chassis of the car, right? If you believe what you read, they now have a pathway to fix the problem. They're saying they're going to be able to make 10,000 cars a month by the end of March, and 20,000 cars a month, by the end, of the next quarter.
And the
which
good
puts
news
them
is-
on the path, right?
Puts them on the path to disappoint everyone. And the good news is a whole bunch of the people who've already put their deposits down will be dead by then because they won't have received their car, and they'll just have to deal with probate.
And yet you look at the stock and they value it as a high-tech
Yeah, no,
software
absolutely.
company. So there's a bunch of people out there, I happen to be one of them, who believes that Elon Musk's going to pull this off.
Did you give him a
And,
deposit?
Do you know what happens? I didn't. I'd love to have one of those cars, but I'm going to wait and see.
There was not
Yeah,
a
I'm
Biff
not-
logo
I didn't
in the
write
car.
I
gonna be
didn't. I'm
driving
not
around
that early an
Florida.
adopter. I didn't write the check, but I do believe he's going to get there. And you know what happens when they do ramp up production of this thing. They start printing cash,
Right.
and they not only do they have enough cash for the next 6 months to work through these kinks in the production cycle, but he can go back to as long as the stock price continues to be valued the way it is, he can go back into the market.
Right.
I would not be worried about Elon Musk right now.
So you're not holding a charity fundraiser,
Yeah, no,
baked beans and hot dogs to help out Tesla.
And when he stuck when he stuck that rocket landing this week, he bought himself a whole lot of stock market value.
Are we sure it was real? It wasn't one of those faux things that conspiracy theorists have. Now let's jump to CVS. A little reality yesterday. CNN broke a story. We picked up on it and tried to get comment from CVS that the Aetna's medical director in California testified in a court proceeding saying, I never review medical records, and functionally the system is a little cooked. And the insurance commissioner in California is doing a major investigation. Isn't that a little bit of the reality of what CVS is trying to pull off, right? They're not building it from scratch like an Elon Musk might or an Amazon might. They're buying something, the third largest insurer, health insurer in the country, and they've got their own devils in their system as well. Isn't this going to be hard? Is it going to be hard?
Of course it's going to be hard. Transformation isn't easy. What they're buying is a capability set, the insurance capability set. They're not buying it because they want to play in the insurance industry the way insurance companies play today.
Yep.
They're buying the capability set because they believe ultimately if they combine and recombine it with other capabilities they have, their store network and other things, that they could, like we were talking about with Jeff Bezos, they could create a whole new customer experience, something that doesn't exist in the world today.
Right.
So you can't think about this as this is the way Aetna works today, this is the way the chain drugstore works today, this is the way the pharmacy benefit management works today. All of those are interesting businesses in their own right? But there's a pretty standard business model for how those things work.
Yeah.
And they can drive efficiencies in there. They can take some costs and share some infrastructure, on the back end. But the real play here is the business model innovation. It's completely transforming the customer experience and the equation. It's delivering better healthcare outcomes, for the same or less money.
Why aren't we seeing other healthcare giants in that M&A world gobbling up all sorts of creative, interesting things to try and compete with CVS and Aetna, whatever Amazon, JP Morgan, and Berkshire Hathaway is going to do, et cetera, et cetera? Why hasn't that yet? Maybe it's in the midst of trigger a whole bunch of transactions that could.
A lot of what's happened over the last 5 years has been what I call share taking. Right? It's been let's get scale. If you're a drugstore, let's buy more stores. That's what CVS did.
Yep.
If you're a health insurer, let's buy another health insurer. Right? Because we can withstand this pressure if we're just bigger.
Right.
This is the bigger
we
is
cut
better.
Costs.
Bigger is better
centralize.
argument. And how to control the costs. Right. What we need is transformation. Entire new models to deliver better care for the same or less money. Right. That's what we desperately need because we can't afford the continued escalating costs. We have a very expensive healthcare system, over-specialized, huge hospital-based infrastructure, which is very necessary for really sick people, but isn't as necessary for people that are less sick or people that are just trying to manage chronic disease, or God forbid we should avoid it in the first place by taking care of ourselves, right? So we need an entire new set of models, a different way to finance it, and so what CVS and Aetna offer the promise to do is to be the disruptor in healthcare, right? Instead of waiting for that disruption to happen to them, they become what I call the market maker. That is a big vision. It remains to be seen whether they can get there. It also remains to be seen how they get valued, because what happens to disruptors is Wall Street doesn't know how to value them.
Yeah, stock. They're not loving the stock.
Because they don't look like the traditional industry, and that's okay, right? Jeff Bezos didn't look like the traditional industry, and he powered his way through it until the stock market understood it. Let me ask you a quick question.
So Hasbro just became the largest toy company in the country, overtaking Mattel, and they transformed themselves somewhat quietly over the last 15 years by becoming an entertainment company.
Right.
Amazon organically grows these things more so than takeovers, although Whole Foods would be an exception. Yep. Could CVS have built their own insurance company internally without bought Aetna?
Yeah, sure they could have if they had more time. I think
Amazon.
I think if you start early enough, yes, you can absolutely do that. You don't have to go out and overpay, versus the market price. Although in this case it's accretive, because it's a smaller but higher margin business, so it helps them, in the short term. But no, you don't always have to make an acquisition. But when you get into the position where you need a very strong signal to change the conversation on Wall Street, sometimes an acquisition can really help you. Sometimes it gets you to the capability set and accelerated way. But I think history will show us, that a lot of these things have been more talk than they've been realized value, right? Because they just end up doing what the old industry model did and creating this conglomerate with different silos, and they don't really learn how to put new business models into the marketplace. They don't do the market making, right? I'm rooting for CVS Health to be able to do this with Aetna. It remains to be seen whether they can do it quickly enough, and whether they can take advantage of both things, right? Driving efficiencies into
Right.
the existing business,
Absolutely.
while at the same time reinventing the way healthcare.
When you
is
pay
done.
$69.9 billion,
Right.
you got to find some efficiencies.
No, absolutely. It's a both and.
Right. I think if they just cut back on those long receipts and make the type much, much smaller, and everybody got tiny little micro receipts.
There you go.
And then that would drive up the eyewear business as well simultaneously. Let's jump over to Uber. Uber just paid Waymo $245 million.
Peanuts, my friend.
Yeah, what's $245 million?
They wanted $1 billion.
They wanted $1.8 billion.
They wanted over $1 billion
first,
and
but they got it cheap.
and they it didn't even cost them cash. It's in Uber stock. It's a $72 billion market cap.
What a deal!
stock.
You rip off your
and
competitor.
They used paper to settle this thing.
Okay, but they
Right.
stole their IP.
Right. Well, okay, so here's the thing. There's a lot interesting about this deal.
So
But-
it's okay
What?
to steal someone's intellectual property as long as you cut a good deal on it on the way
It's
up.
not clear that they did. We'll never know. They never settled it. What the new CEO of Uber did, which I think is really smart, for what I think is short.
Because he
money.
is not the one
Right.
who stole it.
Right.
Stop.
The know-how for artificial intelligence, which everyone has. This is part of the problem. Waymo, which is the Google thing that was on the other side of that
Right.
suit, right? This is the problem, right? If you think that you're the first mover in the technology space, in this case for autonomous vehicles, right?
Correct.
Driverless cars. If you think you can win this thing just with tech, without a business model, you're wrong. And I think what happened this week is the new CEO of Uber said, we got to get this behind us. It's distracting,
Yeah.
right? And for short money in the grand scheme of things for them, when your market cap is 72 billion, you can afford some paper
Right.
to get
Just
this thing out of court.
$245 million.
Plus, it was embarrassing to be in court because the previous CEO was in there yakking, which is what he always did, right? And it was embarrassing. Enough of this. So they settled it. I think it's interesting. One, because I think it's a smart move for Uber, right? That the new CEO can deliver a different message in the marketplace and get this distracting thing behind him. If you're Waymo, right, they had better start getting on with the business model, because if they think they're the first mover anymore,
Yeah, no.
this isn't about what employees went and took the company goods. I think that personally, I think that's overblown. I think there's a lot of people who know how to write software and use artificial intelligence, right? I think the
iPhone came out in 2007 after what, 5 years of development? Competitors had it, whether they stole it or not, like a week later, right? I mean, there's no barrier. There's no tech
This is
barrier.
about
When you-
combining and recombining capabilities and technology, and you better get on with it. If you think you're going to protect the IP and win off of solely off of an IP position,
No.
I don't think those are the waters we're swimming in now. Right? Not that you're not going to fight to protect your IP, of course you are, but if you think that's the winning strategy, right? The winning strategy is more folks who know how to repurpose technology to change the customer equation, and there are so many ways to put this software together and this technology together, that gets around these patents. I don't think you're going to win this game, with IP lawyers.
We got a minute left. Are you having BIF this year? You gotta
Of course
have.
of
You're
course
gonna
we are.
have it.
Of course we are. September 13th and 14th.
September 13th and 14th.
And we're already
Same venue.
If you go to our website, you'll see. I think we've named the first third of the storytellers. Every year.
Who's the
it's
biggest name you've got so far?
It's the Grand Tees. We just added Prince Charles Alexander, this guy's, got 3 Grammy Awards, 35 platinum, records. He went from an incredible artist during the funk era, funk on hold, right? Before it got
George Clinton-esque.
Before funk was eaten by hip hop, right? He repurposed himself as a sound engineer. Right, and then started working with Puff Daddy and produced a lot of his records and did the sound engineering with all this new technology. And then he reinvented himself again. He's up at the Berkeley, School of Music, and he's teaching production and sound engineering, to all these crazy, cool young
I can
musicians.
totally envision
Great
Saul Kaplan
storyteller.
reinvent himself as a funk sound engineer as this next step.
There you
forget
go.
that consulting stuff, forget that economic development leadership, forget this Biff stuff.
Well, I'm the least musical
I could
guy
see
you're
you with a
ever gonna
big
meet.
George Clinton hat.
Least
and some fur.
musical guy you're ever going to meet. But as an innovation junkie, I think the way we combine and recombine notes to create different kinds of music and sounds is such a great metaphor for innovation. So we always want music on the Biff stage. So he's going to perform. He's going to tell his personal reinvention story, and he's just one of a number of storytellers that are already signed up. Go check it out on the website. It's great. Always fun.
Next week we're revisiting schools and innovating Providence's schools.
Right.
That's the challenge. We're
Right.
not talking about safe and warm and dry anymore. We're talking about the gauntlets being
The
thrown
student
down.
experience.
Bring your A game.
Let's do it.
All right?
I'll look
I
forward
want
to
to
it.
thank everybody. Of course, Mr. Innovation gets me all revved up. I can't sleep at night after Mondays. Sometimes I stay up all night innovating or watching Law and Order, whichever comes first. Want to thank our friends at Deepwater Wind, one of the most innovative companies going, and of course Navigant Credit Union for supporting us in the broadcast center. Tomorrow, Ava Gaudet, 3 to 4, and 4 to 5, Kate Nagel, who has promised a rock'em sock'em hour from the 4 to 5 hour. We'll be back. Thanks everybody for tuning in.